was significant impacts on their lands, and they should be compensated. We were the ones that were suffering all the impacts and seeing no benefits from that at all. And the chiefs knew that was wrong.
We actually had to go through a 7-stage process for negotiation, and I believe all of the communities were asked to come together and start identifying all of the issues that each community has with BC Hydro facilities, transmission line, distribution, the power generation, all of those issues that were at the table.
A 7-step process was established where at first the communities identified the issue, whether it's lack of use, fish issues, wildlife issues, and identified this, brought it to BC Hydro. On a collective basis, these grievances were done, I believe, in 1995. A whole list of grievances were provided to BC Hydro. The amount of grievances that Hydro was looking at, they couldn't deal with such a large issue, especially in regard to the socioeconomic issues that the communities were raising. Loss of fish, loss of hunting habitat, mule deer destruction, all these things that impacted on Statlian way of life. BC Hydro, as a Crown corporation, couldn't really grasp the extent of what we're putting forth in regards to the impact it had on our people.
After 1990, when the chiefs got together and they showed a commitment that this is one entity that needed to be taken care of. So from then on, it was established that we needed to build our own team of researchers, doing interviews with our peoples and doing scoping of all of the issues, identifying what all of the issues were. It didn't matter how big or how small, every issue was still valid. So from there, we had to put that team together.
It took so long moving from 1995-96 to 2011 when we had asked for the agreements to be ratified. So when we weren't even sure we were going to reach an agreement anyhow, because we had reached a point in our negotiations where we did reach a standstill because both sides couldn't understand the value of the impacts and how do you assess the impacts and how do you give that value, or how do you explain that value to your members that are here now, but also for future generations? And it took the help of a couple of experts that we brought in to help us understand the level of impacts and how do you translate that into an economic value. And so we had the help of an economist and a cultural anthropologist to really have a good look at our territory.
While we were being impacted from developments by BC Electric, later BC Hydro, there were communities that did not have hydro, like Sukumchuck, Samakwam, and Douglas, for example, who just within the last 10 years were able to get some BC Hydro direct service to their communities.
Well, it took some time to try and figure out what does this list of issues look like for my community, for Houston, for Caish, for Port Douglas, for Shamakwam, and trying to gauge what the impact was, what are things going to look like, and what's Hydro's willingness to sit at the table and resolve those long-standing issues. So it wasn't easy. Obviously, communities are weighing the odds and could they achieve a better deal by themselves. But we decided that we're better to try and approach this together. We can use our collective energies and support one another in trying to achieve and resolve some of these long-standing issues. Quickly,
it was realized that because of the impacts on the fish and the water, that this is something that needed to be done collectively, and so they worked collectively together. And what was one of the most beautiful gifts of the negotiations to see how the nation could stand together strongly to create some effective change and make a difference, right? And that's what happened. And not to say that there wasn't bumps along the road. There was definitely bumps along the road, but the nation is strong and they pulled it together in order to create this lasting legacy for the future.
We had to build the unity amongst our people because we're diverse as a people. Even though we're the same people. Our language is even a little different. It's from the south to the north. So we had to rebuild a relationship, and ultimately recognizing our diversity, recognizing not so much as autonomous communities, because more of unity between communities, even though we recognize that each one is diverse in how they govern in that way. So it took a little bit of work to get the confidence of people. But, you know, our elders have always said to me as a leader anyway, is you must always come together, chief, with the rest of the chiefs, just even if it's just to talk and communicate. And then you can get down to business and do your serious business together. But it's really important for the people and the young people to see you coming together. And that will continue to allow the nation to become closer and closer and more united as we went along. So it took a little bit of an exercise to build that. Some communities figure, you know, what am I going to get out of it? So basically, they all got something out of it. And we had to make sure that those negotiations were set up that way, even though most of the impacts were in the north of the territory and not so much in the south of the territory. But we maintained that these agreements must, you know, contribute to every community and the nation as a whole. So I think that formula worked, and in terms of, because we're new at this too, because we haven't done one of these agreements with the federal and provincial governments because we weren't involved in the treaty process. So it was a slow process of building government-to-government relations internally as well as externally.
When there's a will to negotiate and a desire to settle impacts and move forward, the good, you know, people involved will find a way. And the way was not so much, you know, here's a big pile of money and that's enough. It was, here's a settlement amount. It's significant. At the time, it was probably was one of the, if not the largest non-treaty settlement in the history of the province, in this province. In 2011, there's been others. I mean, with the new mines, there's significant settlement packages now, but at the time, that's what it represented. But the big, you know, the larger value in it was the work that came after and the opportunities that came after in terms of the contracting. And that took a long time to get hydro around. It was a big part of the discussion, but at the end of the day, it was also the component that moved the settlement into a place where it looked like we were going to be able to resolve it. Because now there was an appreciation for the economic loss, the lost opportunity, but also the value in treating the Stadtlium as a partner in the development and the operations.
At one point, there was 11 communities, and then the law pulled out. And there was definitely times where everyone wasn't on the same page of what needed to happen to move this forward. But we had strong leaders who believed they had to work together, and so the differences were worked through, and the chiefs were able to commit to each other to move things forward. And there's a couple examples where the southern communities of Douglas, Schmocklem, and Skittine did not at that time have electricity. They had a power line through their territory. The 3L2 line went through their territory, but they didn't have electricity. They were still operating off of generators. And Chief Mike Leach had clearly said to Hydro, there will be no settlement until those communities have electricity, because they were being treated as a third-class citizen in their own territory. And Mike put that out there as a hard stance, and all the leadership supported that stance, and the southern communities got their power.
It's one agreement. It's not the be-all, end-all agreement. So, and it, you know, you don't get everything that you want in negotiations, but I think we're able to achieve a pretty substantial and pretty significant agreement. So.
That we're a sovereign people, and that the resources and, you know, that are within a territory and all living things within a territory needs to be looked after by us. And because we've always felt that the federal and provincial government were just taking resources out of the territory without any compensation to our people. So we've always maintained that we have a right to be a people and to be a nation of communities, and that we fought hard for that, by the way. We stood on the roads, especially this nation, did a lot of the road demonstrations against the provincial and federal government. When Oka went up, we put a barricade up on Highway 99. We put another one up on the railway, BC Railway. That forced Van der Zam to fly in by helicopter to try to get us off of the railway tracks. So we continue to move forward with all kinds of demonstrations in forestry, on the roads, on the rivers, you name it. We were very active in terms of doing defensive work as a nation to defend our territory. And that ultimately forced them into getting into a government-to-government relationship. And then also to sidetrack this, they started the BC treaty process, which some got involved, but most of us didn't. So now today, I don't think there's really that many that are involved in the BC treaty process. And so that system in our territory has failed them. So our position on Stlatland title and rights, that's not for sale. So if you ever give up the title to your Stlatland territory, then you're going to exchange it for rights from the provincial government under that treaty process. So we decided to go with the government-to-government process. And what that entails is reaching agreements on forestry, like mining and minerals extraction and all those kind of things, everything that goes on within a territory.
I guess to see the benefits, from the agreement last more than just a cash settlement. It's important, I think, that we created that legacy by building the trust to do that. So it makes benefits not only to the communities but also to the nation for a longer term. Right now there are 99 years. Well, that's a long time, even for us that are involved at the time. But it kind of guarantees benefits to the community and to the nation and to the future generations from this agreement. And that was very significant, really, and at the end of the day, to see that and see the benefits of that creates a little bit more certainty, I think, really, in regards to sustainability for our communities and for our nation. To me, this is only one small part of the whole picture, really, as a nation-building exercise. Hydro is just one identity. There's so many other things out there that we could be involved in regards to our nation and our protection of our lands as a territory. So, to me, it's a way and means to do it, really. And I'm hoping that, as time goes by, that helps develop and continue to grow the nation as a nation.
So the trust was intended to be a way of protecting the resources for future generations so that they can benefit.
Some of our achievements was the fact that we were able to track these issues because of our 7-step process, and we had what is referred to as an issue tracking system, where if we identified the issues, we tabled the issues, we looked at reviewing the issues, come up with almost a resolution how we're going to resolve that issues. Step 4, step 5, we had a solution. Many of our communities moved that through the issue tracking system, and I think our ability of our staff to do such awesome work. Our Stlatland Hydro committee staff, I think that was one of the strong things that assisted me and our group to be able to get the settlement we had. We had such an awesome crew in our background. Our legal representative, our Margaret, our Shannon, our Rod, all these people were just amazing on making sure we're on track, getting the information to our community tables on a collective basis right away so that we could move those issues forward. So I think our team, was one of the inspiring things that enabled me. I was busy as a chief dealing with highways, dealing with other issues, but the staff that was dealing with hydro was able to provide me as a negotiator with the appropriate material so I'd move our issues. And I think that was one of the really good things that come out of the agreement.
We interviewed all the elders, and I was given the honor of doing the interviews with the elders. So I went out throughout the whole tribe, and I interviewed as many elders as I could. And you know, it's amazing what they said, and most of them have passed on since.
All of a sudden, it fell on the Declaration Day. You know, the actual signing of this agreement. And so it very much guided by our ancestors. You just watch things around you when you see things moving. Spiritually, you see things moving, and you feel the people moving. Because one elder said to me, I asked him what he thought about this, and he says, "Well, if it's good for the people, Chief, it'll work. If it isn't, it won't." Simple. You know, a very simple answer, and I understood that. So the Declaration of All Tribe was our guiding light that was signed by our ancestors, and they were very present throughout these negotiations. And so when we signed it in 2011, exactly 100 years later from the signing of the Declaration, if somebody says that was all fixed and just planned that way, no, we tried to sign that agreement many times. And it just so happened that we were very close to that date. We were going to have a gathering in Chalath, and they said, "Hey, everybody's going to be there, so why not sign it then?" So we did.
There's one moment. You know, my dad was in a hospital here in Lillooet, and we were told that he wasn't going to go back home. I went to sit with him, and he says, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I just want to spend time." And he said that there's a meeting going on. He says, "You go up there, it's important." So I think that was an inspiration. It's the last time I talked to him. It meant keep on. It meant no matter what it takes, attend these meetings because it's important. It's important to the ones that have passed, where he was going. It's important to the future. That's what it meant. Always remember who you are, who you work for, and who elected you in. I think that it's so important. Be transparent, be open and honest about anything and everything, and work hard. Be honest and work hard. I've been told by a few of our past chiefs in Catholic, when you're elected, you're the voice and the face of the people, from the ones that are just born to the ones that are just leaving. You're the face and voice of those people. And never forget that. It's not about individuals. It's not about self. It's about the people and the future.
We're suffering these impacts, but how do we make the lands and the waters better for our future? And that honestly was the integrity by which the leadership went into these conversations. What is rightfully owed to us as title holders of this land, and how do we make things better because the impacts were so significant to the people.
One of the things that is required is for our leaders to get back to around the table and begin to talking about the very issues that are affecting all of us, and apply the experiences that we have had in the past and begin to address the issues of concern. Now, the advice I would give, come back to the table, talk as a whole tribe, and deal with matters that are important for all of us.
The nation is strong. They will continue to do that. Make decisions based on what's best for them, their culture, their land, their animals, and the water. We are coming into a time where the water is so incredibly important, and hydro plays a key role in water in our territory. And so we need to protect our lands and our waters, and that's only going to be done if, again, working together.
Well, this settlement was made with the future generations in mind, and is a very uncomfortable thing to resolve conflicts for people you've never met and you don't know, and to have that responsibility. And so I mean, there's some comfort in the settlement itself, knowing that you did everything that you possibly can to inform the settlement. And at the end of the day, you're comfortable with it, either through the legal advice you've given, the legal representation, or if you're one of the members, how you participated in the decision you made at the end of the day. I think it has a lasting effect and lasting value for the future.
Statlium is stronger together. Knowing and understanding that we're very resourceful. We've been since time immemorial, time out of mind. We've been utilizing the land and resources. We've survived a lot. And I think it's just being proud of who we are. Being proud of where we come from and what our accomplishments are. We just have to stay strong and stay together. Stay united.
The basis of everything is the Statlam 1911 Declaration. That was a guiding document for us throughout these negotiations, and it should be for future generations, and not to be afraid to talk to the government or any other crown corporation. Just have the big picture in mind all the time while doing things, thinking about things. Just don't stay focused on the short-term aspect of it. And that was the other guiding thing, was the bigger picture always helped us achieve that, get us through the negotiations.
I think it goes down to the declaration, really. Those are the first real evidence, I guess, we have on written paper on who we are and where we come from, and affirming our rights and our title, our title to the land and the rights that flow from that land. We call them our visionaries, really, that, at that time in the history, they wrote it down, and they brought it to the government of the time, to state our claim to our territory. So to me, it was important, that is there. And we rely on a lot of that, really, to support our negotiations in the future. It lays out, our past leaders and all the different communities at that time, that they speak as one. That's a nation, the Statlium, and supports our claim to our territory, and why, those were there. So, and leaders from that time, have continued that battle, really, even in the last 40 years I've been involved, I guess, learning that and trying to transfer that, really knowledge of nationhood. Sure, we are a community, but we're a community within a nation. And I think it's important that the younger generation see that. To me, we're always stronger as a nation. We deal with the whole nation, support each other. We protect the territory, so that hopefully in the future our younger generations know that. So one of a kind agreement right now with regards to BC, as far as I know, our nation has been very strong in doing things together. This one, to me, it's a small measure of justice, really. So to me, it benefits, and it kind of puts to bed some of the issues that we've been dealing with for years. And so now that we can go forward with, something in place that not only benefits our generation now, but future generations as well, and even my great-grandchildren at some point, because to me that's important that there be benefits from this whole thing. I put, like I said, 20 years of my life into this. So to see finally signing something and moving forward now, so now we can look to the future.
So I'm hoping that utilizing the funds that flow from the agreement are going to give us economic opportunity, some economic certainty. But I see it as one opportunity. So I'm waiting to see what's the next agreement that we're going to achieve with the province, and is there an opportunity to achieve anything with the federal government down the road?
We're only the keepers of sovereignty here. So to know that this land does not belong to you, it belongs to the Creator. And that for you to sit at the table there is a very spiritual matter between you and your people.
I'm going to sing the dream song. The dream song it's a sacred song. It's not only about dreams, it's about prayer, it's about communication, it's about sending messages. And I think it's important and fitting that we can sing this song right now. And yes.